Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Here was another one of these crazy cheating stories, but she cheated on him after 15 years. He did a grand reveal at her friend's wedding. This is someone I met at the gym I go to. Let's see if this story gets stolen. We all know where this story originated from, Tony's cheating stories. I am Malcolm, and for 15 long years Charlene and I have been a strong couple. We've navigated through financial hardships, health scares, and all the challenges that come with raising two kids. Our home is more than just a house. It's a sanctuary filled with love, laughter, and memories. I mean, we've got the whole 9 yards: summer vacations, family game nights, and even those cheesy matching holiday sweaters. You get the picture. It seemed like we had it all figured out. Now Charlene has this best friend, Rachel. They've been inseparable since college, sorority sisters, bridesmaids at each other's weddings, the whole deal. So when Rachel dropped the news that she was tying the knot, it was a big deal for Charlene. She was thrilled, not just for her friend, but also for herself. After all, a bachelorette party is a great excuse for a girl's night out, something Charlene hadn't had in a while. Rachel planned to have her bachelorette party at a swanky downtown hotel, complete with a spa day, a fancy dinner, and a night of dancing. Charlene was buzzing with excitement. Weeks before the event, she went shopping for the perfect outfit, booked a salon appointment, and even started a group chat with the other attendees to plan some surprises for Rachel. I was genuinely happy for her. She deserved a break from her routine, but here's where things started to get interesting. As the date of the bachelorette party approached, I noticed subtle changes in Charlene's behavior. She seemed a bit more preoccupied than usual, frequently lost in thought. She was spending more time on her phone, giggling at messages that she quickly swiped away. When I walked into the room, I didn't think much of it at first. After all, she was planning a big event. But something in my gut told me that these were not just innocent pre-party jitters. And as it turns out, my intuition was spot on, but I wouldn't find that out until much later. The day of the party finally arrived, and the atmosphere in our home was electric. Charlene spent hours getting ready, meticulously applying her makeup and styling her hair. When she finally descended the stairs, she looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine. She gave me a long kiss and assured me she'd be careful and try not to stay out too late. The kids and I had a blast, but as the night wore on, I found myself checking the clock more frequently. Finally, around 2:30 a.m., I heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. Charlene was back. She looked radiant, but also somewhat distant. She said the party was amazing, showed me a few photos, and then claimed she was wiped out. She headed straight for the bedroom. In the days following the bachelorette party, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in our relationship. Charlene was physically present, but emotionally, it felt like she was miles away. Initially, I attributed it to exhaustion. After all, she had a long night of partying. But as the days turned into weeks, it became increasingly clear that something wasn't right. The first major red flag was her sudden obsession with her phone. Charlene had always been casual about her phone. She'd leave it lying around the house, sometimes even forgetting where she placed it. But now it was as if the device had become an extension of herself. She changed her passcode, one that she didn't share with me, and started taking her phone everywhere. I mean, she'd even carry it with her to the bathroom, something she had never done before. Then came the late nights at work. Charlene had a 9 to 5 job and was always home by dinner time. It was one of the things I admired about her. She was committed to spending quality time with the family. But suddenly she was swamped with urgent projects and critical meetings that required her to stay late. The first time it happened, I thought nothing of it. Work pressures catch up with everyone. But when it became a pattern, my head was screaming red alert. Adding to my growing concern was her change in routine. Charlene had always been a creature of habit. She had her favorite spots on the couch, her preferred morning coffee blend, and even her go-to playlist for cleaning. But now she was switching things up. She started listening to different music, took up jogging, something she had always claimed to despise, and even changed her diet. It was as if she was trying to become a different person. And let's not forget the mysterious new friend at work. She mentioned him casually in a conversation, saying they were collaborating on a project. But the way she spoke his name with a sort of guarded curiosity made me wonder if there was more to the story. Each of these red flags on its own might not have meant much, but together they painted a picture that I couldn't ignore. It was a mosaic of warning signs. The feeling that something was off had turned into a full-blown suspicion. I knew I had to get to the bottom of it, not just for my peace of mind, but for the sake of our family. So, I decided to do some investigative work as much as I hated the idea of snooping. The first clue came when I was using our shared iPad to look up some recipes. Charlene and I had always been open about our devices up until recently, but to my surprise, she didn't put a password on the iPad. As I was scrolling through the apps, I stumbled upon one that looked like it had a lock on it. It was cleverly disguised as a utility app, something you use for maybe news feeds or something else, but something about it seemed out of place. Curiosity got the better of me and I opened the app. What I found was a vault, a hidden space designed to keep messages, photos, and other files away from prying eyes. That's when I felt my heart beating a little faster as I realized that the app was linked to Charlene's phone. I hesitated for a moment, wrestling with the ethics of what I was about to do, but ultimately the need for the truth won out. I entered the vault, and what I discovered was a bombshell. There were text messages, explicit photos, and even voice notes, all confirming the terrible truth. Charlene had cheated on me before and during the bachelorette party. The messages were not just flirtatious. They were intimate, detailing encounters and future plans. The sender was this mysterious friend from work. She had casually mentioned, as I sat there staring at the screen in a daze, I really couldn't believe what I was seeing for a moment. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think my world had been turned upside down and the person responsible was the one I had trusted the most. But as the initial shock began to subside, another feeling took his place. I started to get angry. I gave this damn woman the world. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my secure email, and then deleted any trace of my activity on the iPad. The revelation was hard to swallow, but I knew that losing my composure wouldn't help. It had to be strategic, calculated, and above all discreet. The first was to consult a legal expert. I scheduled a meeting with a top-notch divorce attorney. I had to find this out on my own. I wasn't going to reach out to any family members or friends to get recommendations because they would probably say something to my wife. When I found an attorney, I presented all the evidence I had gathered, ensuring that I had a solid case should things escalate to that point. Next, I took a hard look at our financial situation. I started transferring assets into accounts solely under my name, ensuring that I had a financial safety net. I also made copies of all important documents, bank statements, property deeds, and even our kids' school records. I left no stone unturned, but the most crucial part of my plan was the timing. I needed a moment so impactful that it would leave a permanent mark, a moment that Charlene would never forget. And what better occasion than Rachel's wedding? It was the perfect setting, a gathering of close friends and family, an atmosphere of love and commitment, the ultimate irony given the circumstances. As the wedding day approached, I played the role of the doting husband to perfection. I even went with Charlene to pick out her bridesmaid's dress, complimenting her on how beautiful she looked. I wanted to give her a false sense of security to make her believe that everything was as it should be. All the while, my plan was crystallizing in my mind, each detail meticulously thought out. I knew that the wedding would have a segment for speeches and toast. Traditionally, these were heartfelt messages wishing the newlyweds a lifetime of happiness, but for me, it would serve a different purpose. It would be the stage for my grand reveal, the moment when I would expose Charlene's betrayal in front of everyone who mattered to her. As the days counted down to the wedding, I rehearsed my speech multiple times, choosing my words carefully. I wanted it to be impactful yet dignified, a reflection of the gravity of the situation. I even confided in a trusted friend to ensure that I would be given the opportunity to speak during the wedding. Everything was falling into place. The day of Rachel's wedding arrived and the atmosphere was electric with excitement and celebration. Charlene, dressed in her bridesmaid gown, looked radiant. She had no idea that the day would be anything other than a joyful celebration of love and commitment. I wore a tailored suit looking every bit the proud husband. We smiled for photos, danced a little, and mingled with guests to anyone watching. We were the picture of marital bliss, but beneath the surface, my plan was ready to be set into motion. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with heartfelt vows and emotional moments. As Rachel and her new husband exchanged rings, I couldn't help but think about the vows Charlene and I had once made to each other, vows that she had broken. Finally, the reception began. Guests were ushered into a grand hall adorned with elegant decorations. The atmosphere was festive with the live band playing and people laughing, toasting, and enjoying themselves. It was a perfect setting for what I was about to do. As the evening progressed, the time for speeches and toasts arrived. Friends and family took turns sharing well wishes for the newlyweds. I had coordinated with the MC earlier, ensuring that I would have a slot to speak. My heart was starting to beat faster as I waited for my turn, rehearsing my words one last time in my head. Finally, the MC announced my name. I took a deep breath and walked up to the microphone, looking at Charlene for just a moment, but she wasn't paying attention. I started by offering heartfelt congratulations to Rachel and her husband, wishing them a lifetime of happiness and love. The crowd applauded and I paused for a moment, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. Then I shifted gears. I looked directly at Charlene, who was seated at a table with other bridesmaids, and began the next part of my speech. Charlene looked like she was confused a little. Well, she was about to be unconfused. Charlene, we've been husband and wife for 15 years. We've built a life, a family, and a home together. But what you're not aware of is that the past 3 months, I've been living with a devastating truth. I've discovered your affair. I continued, letting each word hang in the air for a moment before moving on. I've gathered evidence, consulted legal professionals, and prepared myself for the life-altering changes that are about to come. I have here, I said, pulling a sealed envelope from my jacket pocket, divorce papers that are fully prepared and only require your signature. You have two options. You can sign them right here, right now in front of everyone, or you can wait and I'll have them formally served to you. The choice is yours. Everything went dead silent. Everyone started looking at Charlene. Charlene sat there, visibly stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, she looked like she was going to speak, but she didn't say anything. She glanced around the room, perhaps searching for some form of support or understanding, but was met with a sea of shocked faces, realizing the gravity of the situation. She took the envelope from my hand, opened it, and without saying a word, signed the divorce papers right there at the table. In the weeks that followed, the divorce proceedings moved swiftly, thanks in part to the irrefutable evidence I had gathered. The court granted me full custody of our children, acknowledging that their well-being was best served in a stable environment, away from the tumultuous relationship their mother had engaged in. I retained ownership of our family home, ensuring that the kids would have a sense of continuity and security. As for Charlene, she was left to grapple with the consequences of her actions. She moved into a small apartment, her reputation tarnished, not just within our circle of friends, but also in her professional life. The mysterious friend from work, he was transferred to another department and their so-called relationship fizzled out, leaving Charlene with nothing but a guilt and shame to keep her company. I just went through this less than a year ago. I tell most of my friends today that are contemplating marriage, just because you have been married for a long time, doesn't mean you know your partner 100%. Oh, I do let my ex-wife take the kids and spend time with their mother. Even though I have full custody, I still want the kids to have a relationship with their mother. My name is Connor, and when I look back on my 15-year marriage to Mandy, I can hardly believe how blonde I was. We met when we were just 19, young and reckless. She was a waitress at a diner near my college campus. I was a freshman with big dreams, but little direction. We clicked right away over late-night cups of coffee and conversations about music and movies. Before we even really knew each other, we had jumped into marriage and started a family. Our first child, Jacob, came along when we were 21. We were just kids ourselves, trying to raise a baby in a cramped studio apartment while finishing school. Money was tight as we balanced part-time jobs and classes. Mandy's parents had disowned her for getting pregnant out of wedlock, so we had no family to turn to. I worked as a bartender and Mandy waitress at night while our neighbor watched the baby. We argued a lot about how to make ends meet. Mandy wanted me to drop out and work full-time while she stayed home, but I was determined to finish my engineering degree. I thought we'd both have to work and make sacrifices if we were going to provide any kind of decent life for our son. Those years nearly tore us apart. If not for our love for Jacob, I don't know if we would have made it. By the time our daughter, Wendy, was born, we were 25. We had settled into an uneasy compromise. I had finally graduated and secured an entry-level job with a construction firm. Mandy continued waitressing part-time for the flexible hours and extra cash. We bought a small house in the country, thrilled to finally have space and a backyard for the kids. Those early years were filled with chaos, but also joy. I worked long hours as a junior site manager, often leaving before dawn for faraway construction sites. I cherished the weekends, spending sunny Saturdays in the yard, kicking a ball with Jacob and pushing Wendy on the swing set. On Sundays, we would go to the zoo or children's museum, making memories as a family. When I got home from work, I was exhausted. Mandy would have dinner ready, but sometimes I would go straight to bed afterwards, weary from being on my feet all day, yelling at contractors and troubleshooting problems on the work site. Mandy started hinting that she wanted to go back to school for interior design, but we couldn't afford full-time daycare. I told her to wait a few more years until the kids were both in school. I thought we were making it work. The kids were happy and healthy, and Mandy and I had settled into a comfortable routine. Well, at least that's the way it looked. Looking back now, I can see the signs were there all along. When the kids reached school age and Mandy started taking some classes, she began coming home later and later. She said it was group assignments, but I would call the school and no one had heard of any night classes. When I asked to see her syllabus, she got defensive and accused me of being controlling. Mandy started going out more too, claiming it was just mom's nights for wine and venting. Sometimes she didn't stumble home until midnight or later. When I complained that she needed to be up to get the kids on the school bus, she accused me of smothering her. I backed off, wanting to be supportive and not be the bad guy. I figured she was bored from working all the time or watching the kids when she was off work and needed to blow off some steam now and then. As the kids were getting older, the cracks in our marriage were becoming canyons. Mandy was still taking random night classes, but didn't seem interested in pursuing interior design anymore. We rarely spent time together, and when we did, we ended up arguing about money or childcare logistics. She was hanging out with single gal pals, going to clubs and coming back reeking of alcohol and cigarette smoke. I was smoking too, picking up the habit from the endless stress of job site emergencies. We slept in separate rooms by then and avoided each other as much as possible. I buried myself in work, thinking if I could just make foreman, then supervisor, it would smooth things over. Mandy continued going out more and more, not coming home until early morning some nights. I tried to shield the kids from it as best I could, but I know Jacob and Wendy sensed the tension simmering below the surface. Finally, one night, it all exploded. Mandy didn't come home at all. I sat up until the sun crept in, fury and dread churning in my gut. Around 5 a.m., she finally rolled in, reeking of alcohol and sweat, smeared makeup all over her face. When I demanded to know where she'd been, she burst out laughing. I was with my lover, Rick. We've been hooking up for months. You're such an idiot, Connor. This marriage is a joke. Her words hit me like a sucker punch as she rambled on about her boyfriend, Rick, how they'd been meeting for secret hookups in cheap motels, how he satisfied her in ways I never could. I felt sick. I wanted to scream and rage to demand answers, but the kids were asleep upstairs. So, I quietly told Mandy to pack a bag and get the fuck out. She left, still ranting and raving, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall shook. I sat stunned in the armchair. How could I have been so blind? The signs were all there, but I had ignored them, burying myself in work and the comfortable fiction of domestic life. I had lived a lot for years, right under my own roof. I didn't tell the kids right away. I let them get through the school week, trying to act normal, but inside I was reeling. On Friday afternoon, I finally sat Wendy and Jacob down. I broke the news about why their mom left, told them that their mom was having an affair with another man, and I asked her to leave. Jacob, now 15, turned red with fury. He immediately blamed Mandy, calling her a selfish cheat. He said he never wanted to speak to her again. Wendy, at 11, was more upset. She cried while I held her, huge heaving sobs racking her slender frame. I didn't have any words that could make it better. All I could do was hug my kids close while our little world crumbled around us. In the months after Mandy left, I tried to cling to stability for the kids. I made breakfast and dinner, checked homework, and held my tears in until I was alone. Jacob hardly reacted outwardly after that first day, sealing up his emotions, but I could tell he was broken-hearted. Wendy remained withdrawn and weepy. Whenever Mandy called, trying to explain herself or win the kids back, they refused to speak to her. I stopped answering her calls too. There was nothing left to say. The divorce proceedings were almost anticlimactic after the bomb that had blown our family apart. Mandy tried every manipulation in the book, but it was too late. She blamed me, saying I had ignored her needs. She claimed I drove her into the arms of another man by being boring and unsupportive. At one point, she even tried to say our marriage failed because of lack of intimacy after the kids were born. She tried to turn Wendy and Jacob against me, telling them lies about how controlling I was. None of her gaslighting worked. Once I knew the truth, I saw her schemes for what they were: desperate ploys from a woman unwilling to take responsibility for her own destructive choices. In the courtroom, Mandy tried to blame me again for all her cheating and negligent behavior, but I had proof now in the form of emails and receipts from her secret hotel stays, credit card bills for restaurants and vacations she had taken with her lover. I presented the evidence calmly, though inside I shook with anger at the injustice of it all. Mandy broke down weeping and pleading, but it was far too late for any of that. In the end, the judge clearly saw her for what she was: an unfaithful wife and absent mother. Jacob had chosen to stay with me rather than his mother, but I couldn't get primary custody of Wendy. She was only 11 at the time, and we went 50-50 custody. That painful chapter closed over a year ago. The kids and I have slowly begun to heal. Jacob is still closed off emotionally and wants little to do with his mother. Their relationship may always be strained. Wendy, though, has found more acceptance. Once the initial shock and hurt faded, she realized she still needed her mom in her life on some level. They would occasionally go for a meal or shopping trip. I know Wendy's kindness will be a gift in mending that broken bond, and I will support her no matter what, just as I've supported both kids through this life-changing ordeal. As for me, the past year has been about rebuilding myself, my relationship with my kids, my sense of world. For over a decade, I believed one thing when the truth was something far more painful. Such a massive deception can corrode your very foundation, but I've also found unexpected sources of hope and joy where I least expected it. Her name is Marlene. I met her 6 months ago on a new construction project for luxury condos downtown. Marlene is a real estate agent. She is sometimes hired to style and stage the model units. I was immediately struck by her quick mind and kind spirit, so different from the turmoil I'd become used to at home. We started spending our site-meeting coffee breaks together, chatting about life and work, then a drink after work turned into dinner. Before I knew it, we were spending every spare moment together. There was no lightning bolt moment of falling in love, just a steady warmth and rightness, like I had found a missing piece I didn't know was gone. Her presence soothed me, her laughter healed something. When I finally told the kids I had met someone, they were understandably weary. Their own mother had just ripped our family in two. How could they ever trust another woman entering our lives? But when they met Marlene, her gentle caring melted their doubts. She makes me feel alive again after years of just going through the motions. When we are together, I remember what a real partnership feels like. Knowing someone has your back, supports your dreams, wants to share the journey. I know we'll take it slow for the kids' sake, but I can picture a future with Marlene now, a chance to rebuild my life into something beautiful again. The path ahead has its challenges. I still have moments of grief and anger over Mandy's betrayal that catch me unprepared. My relationship with Jacob remains tentative. We are both wary of trusting too much again too soon, But rebuilding takes time and all things grow stronger with care. What Mandy broke, Marlene and I commend. When I look back now on my failed marriage, part of me is sad for the naive boy I was who believed in happily ever after, but mostly I feel grateful. Grateful for second chances, grateful for my strong children who have stood by me through the hardest year of our lives, and grateful for Marlene, a woman whose love and light has lifted the shadows of the past. I don't know if I'll ever marry again. For now, I am focused on writing a new story one day at a time. It won't be perfect or predictable, but it will be real. My marriage to Mandy nearly broke me, but now my life is filled with hope once more. Hard-won wisdom as a way of illuminating your path, help you move forward. And while the future is uncertain, I look ahead with an open heart, determined to appreciate every moment. Well, in my opinion, the fact that she told him that she was with the lover, wow, blatant disrespect for the marriage and the kids. People don't ever put up with shit like that ever. If you do, it shows a sign of weakness, and you will be walked over all the time. Don't do it. Remember, don't ever let someone make a fool out of you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Ever since we moved to this quaint suburb, Jenna's eyes had sparkled with a different light. She found her haven in an exclusive book club, a sanctuary for avid readers like herself. Initially, it seemed like a blessing. She'd return from the meetings with a vibrant energy, her laughter filling our home like music. But as months rolled by, I noticed subtle changes. She'd whisper on the phone, smile secretively at text messages, and our conversations, they just dwindled. One night, she came home past midnight, her eyes dodging mine. The discussion went late. Love, she murmured, her voice a hushed escape. My heart wanted to believe her, but my mind, it churned with doubts. I decided to follow her the next time she left for the club. The evening air was crisp as I trailed her car from a safe distance. She drove to the heart of the city, parking outside an old Victorian building, its walls echoing stories of a bygone era. The place didn't look like any book club I'd ever seen. Through the dimly lit windows, I could see silhouettes, people moving with an odd familiarity. I slipped in quietly, finding a spot behind a row of antique bookshelves. My heart raced as I peered through the gaps. There she was, my Jenna, her eyes locked with a man I'd never seen. They spoke in hushed tones, their hands touching briefly, a gesture so intimate it clawed at my chest. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of truth I had just witnessed. As I prepared to confront them, a sudden commotion erupted. The group gathered around something, their voices a mix of shock and excitement. I strained to see, but before I could understand, Jenna's eyes met mine across the room. Time stood still, her expression a tangled web of fear and surprise. I retreated hastily, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. What was this place? Who was that man? And, most importantly, what was Jenna hiding? Outside, the cold night air felt harsh against my skin, a stark contrast to the fire burning in my chest. I knew then, this was just the beginning. There were secrets lurking in the shadows of that book club, secrets that threatened to shatter the life I thought we had. As I drove back home, a single, haunting question echoed in my mind. What happens next? Like, share, and subscribe if you're hooked and can't wait to uncover the secrets of the double life of a book club. The next few days were a blur. My mind kept replaying that night, each memory a shard piercing through my heart. Jenna's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She was on edge, her eyes darting nervously whenever her phone buzzed. It was as if she was guarding a sinister secret, one that could crumble our world. I had to know more. I couldn't let this gnawing suspicion eat away at me. So, I decided to delve deeper into the mystery of the book club. My first stop was the local library. If this club was as exclusive as Jenna claimed, someone there must have heard about it. The librarian, a kindly old woman with a penchant for mystery novels, raised an eyebrow when I mentioned the club. That club, she said, a note of caution in her voice. It's not what it appears to be. They're a selective bunch, not just anyone can join. Her words were cryptic, but they fueled my resolve. That evening, as Jenna prepared for another meeting, I feigned exhaustion and retreated to our bedroom. As soon as I heard the car pull away, I sprang into action. Dressed in dark clothing, I headed back to the Victorian building, determination my silent companion. I crept in unnoticed, finding a new hiding spot. The group was already gathered, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of antique lamps. I strained to listen, catching fragments of conversations that made no sense. They weren't discussing books, they were planning something. Something big. My heart pounded as I watched Jenna. She seemed different here, more alive, more dangerous. The man from before was there too, his hand resting possessively on her shoulder. A surge of jealousy and anger washed over me, but I forced myself to stay focused. Suddenly, the room went silent. A new figure had entered, someone I couldn't quite see. The group huddled around, listening intently. The air was thick with anticipation. I leaned in closer, desperate to catch their words. That's when disaster struck. A bookshelf I was leaning against gave way with a loud crash, sending books tumbling down. All eyes turned towards me, shock and recognition mirrored in Jenna's eyes. I scrambled to my feet, my cover blown. The group advanced towards me, their expressions a mix of anger and curiosity. Jenna's voice cut through the chaos. "He's my husband." The room fell silent. The mysterious figure stepped forward, his identity sending shockwaves through my very being. It was. It was David, Jenna's ex-fiancé, whom she had often mentioned in passing, always with a hint of unresolved emotions. His presence sent 1,000 questions racing through my mind. Why was he here, and what role did he play in Jenna's secret life? The room was thick with tension, each person waiting for the other to break the silence. David's eyes were fixed on me, a mixture of amusement and challenge in his gaze. "So, you're the husband Jenna can't stop talking about," he said, his voice smooth, yet laced with something sinister. Jenna stepped forward, her eyes pleading. "Let's talk outside," she whispered, grabbing my arm. I followed, numb and confused. Outside, under the starless sky, Jenna's facade crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as she began to unravel the truth. The book club was a front, a gathering of individuals bound by a shared past and a dangerous secret. David, their charismatic leader, had lured Jenna back into his world, a world she thought she had escaped when she left him for a simpler, honest life with me. The club? It's not just about books or affairs, Jenna sobbed. It's much bigger. We're planning to expose a massive corporate scandal, one that David and I uncovered years ago. But we needed a group, a cover, and I got pulled back in. I was stunned. The betrayal I had imagined was of a different kind, a deeper deception that entangled Jenna in a web of danger and moral dilemmas. David's plan was to use the club as a cover to leak the scandal to the press, but the stakes were high. Anyone involved was at risk. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice a mix of anger and hurt. "I wanted to protect you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I could keep my two worlds separate. But I was wrong." The weight of her confession hung heavy between us. I was torn between the love for my wife and the shock of her double life. Just then, a black car pulled up. Its windows rolled down, revealing a face that sent a chill down my spine. It was. In the car sat Mr. Hargrove, the CEO of the corporation entangled in the scandal Jenna and David were trying to expose. His cold, calculating eyes bore into us, sending a wave of dread through my body. How did he find us? The implications were terrifying. "Jenna, we need to talk." Hargrove's voice was calm, but there was an underlying threat that couldn't be ignored. Jenna stiffened, her resolve faltering under his gaze. He stepped out of the car, his presence dominating. "You're playing a dangerous game. I suggest you and your little group reconsider your actions," he said, his eyes flickering to me, assessing. Jenna gathered her courage, her voice steady. "We won't be intimidated. The truth needs to come out." Hargrove chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "Be careful, Jenna. You're not the only one with something to lose." With a final piercing look, he got back into his car and drove away. The encounter left us shaken. Jenna clung to me, her body trembling. "What have I gotten us into?" she whispered. We drove home in silence, the night's events weighing heavily on us. Once home, Jenna revealed everything. The club, under David's leadership, had been working to compile irrefutable evidence of Hargrove's corrupt practices. Jenna's role had been to help decode complex financial documents, thanks to her background in finance. But why involve your ex? I asked, the jealousy and confusion evident in my voice. Jenna sighed. David was the one who discovered the scandal initially. We had to work together, despite our past. It was never about rekindling anything with him. I wanted to believe her, but the sting of betrayal, real or perceived, was hard to shake off. The next day, as I grappled with the revelations, I received an anonymous email. It contained a single file, marked urgent. Hesitantly, I opened it and found myself staring at a detailed report of Hargrove's illicit activities, along with a note. Expose him, or more than your marriage is at stake. The gravity of the situation was now undeniable. We were in too deep, caught in a dangerous game where the stakes were life and death. As I pondered our next move, a sudden knock at the door jolted me. I opened it to find. Standing at the door was a stern-faced man I didn't recognize, his eyes scanning the room behind me with an unsettling intensity. I need to speak with Jenna, he said, his voice firm, leaving no room for questions. As Jenna approached, her face paled upon seeing him. Detective Miller, she greeted, her voice a shaky whisper. The detective's presence was ominous, hinting at trouble far beyond our fears. Detective Miller wasted no time. We've been monitoring Hargrove and his associates, including your book club, he began, his eyes fixed on Jenna. You're dangerously close to a situation that's much larger than a corporate scandal. Jenna and I exchanged worried glances. The detective's revelation meant our actions were no longer hidden in the shadows. They were under the scrutiny of law enforcement. Miller continued, we can offer protection, but in exchange, we need everything you have on Hargrove. And we need your cooperation to bring him down. The offer was a lifeline amidst the chaos. Jenna nodded, the burden of her secret life finally lifting. She agreed to work with the detective, promising to deliver the evidence the next day. After Miller left, Jenna and I had a long, heart-to-heart conversation. It was time to lay all cards on the table, to rebuild the trust that had been strained by secrets and lies. We vowed to face the coming storm together. The next morning, as we prepared to hand over the evidence to Detective Miller, an encrypted message popped up on Jenna's phone. It was from David, urgent and foreboding. Meet me immediately. It's about Hargrove. Don't bring the evidence. Jenna's eyes met mine, a storm of uncertainties swirling in them. We knew meeting David could be a trap, but what if he had critical information? With heavy hearts, we decided to split up. Jenna would meet David while I would deliver the evidence to Detective Miller. It was a risk, but one we felt compelled to take. As I drove towards the police station, my mind raced with possibilities. Meanwhile, Jenna headed to an old warehouse, the designated meeting spot. When I handed the evidence to Miller, his grim expression did little to ease my anxiety. We'll handle it from here, he said. Go home and wait for Jenna. But Jenna didn't come home. Hours passed, and her phone went straight to voicemail. A sinking feeling took hold of me. Something was terribly wrong. Rushing to the warehouse, my worst fears materialized. The place was deserted, a single piece of paper lying in the center of the room. I picked it up, my hands trembling. It was a note from David. You should have trusted me, not the police. Jenna's gone, and it's your fault. Panic coursed through me as I stared at the note. Jenna was missing, and I was clueless about her whereabouts. David's betrayal stung deep, but there was no time to dwell on it. I had to find Jenna. Racing back home, I called Detective Miller, but it went to voicemail. Desperation mounting, I started piecing together every clue, every conversation that might lead me to Jenna. Then it struck me, the book club. Perhaps someone there knew where David might have taken her. I headed back to the Victorian building, the place where this tangled web began. The members were gathered, their faces etched with concern and confusion. Upon seeing me, they fell silent. I need to find Jenna, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. David has taken her, and I believe he's planning something drastic. The group exchanged glances, the tension palpable. Then, one of them, a woman named Lisa, stepped forward. I think I know where they might be, she said hesitantly. David mentioned a safe house once, a place he used when things got complicated. Grasping onto this sliver of hope, I followed Lisa to a secluded cabin hidden deep in the woods. The place looked abandoned, but a faint light flickered through the windows. We approached cautiously, the silence of the woods eerie and foreboding. As we reached the door, muffled voices seeped through. I recognized Jenna's voice, her tone frantic. Bursting through the door, I was met with a scene that chilled me to the bone. Jenna was bound to a chair, her eyes wide with fear. David stood over her, a crazed look in his eyes. In his hand was a flash drive, likely containing copies of the evidence against Hargrove. "Stop this, David," I yelled, my heart pounding. David turned, a twisted smile on his face. "You don't understand, do you? This was never just about exposing Hargrove. It's bigger than that, and Jenna, she's the key." Before he could continue, the sound of sirens pierced the air. The police, led by Detective Miller, swarmed the cabin. In the chaos, David made a break for it, clutching the flash drive. I lunged at him, and in the scuffle, the flash drive flew from his grasp and slid under a nearby cabinet. The police apprehended David, and I rushed to Jenna, untying her. Her relief at being safe was palpable, but our victory was short-lived. As the police searched the cabin, a disturbing discovery was made. Hidden in a concealed compartment were documents and evidence linking not only Hargrove but also high-ranking officials in a web of corruption far more extensive than we had imagined. Detective Miller approached us, his expression grave. "You two have unearthed a conspiracy that goes to the very top. You're not safe. We need to get you into protective custody immediately." As we were escorted out, I glanced back at the cabin. The flash drive still lay hidden, its secrets untapped. But for now, Jenna and I had a more pressing concern: staying alive. As Detective Miller ushered us into the back of an unmarked police car, the reality of our situation sank in. We were now key witnesses in a case that reached the highest echelons of power. Fear and uncertainty clouded my thoughts, but Jenna's hand in mine was a comforting anchor. We were taken to a secure location, a nondescript house in a quiet neighborhood. Miller briefed us on the situation. "You two have kicked a hornet's nest. We need to keep you under the radar until the trial. It's not just about Hargrove anymore. There are others, powerful people who will do anything to keep this quiet." The days turned into weeks as we lived in our protective bubble. We had each other, but the isolation was stifling. We were cut off from the world, with only occasional visits from Detective Miller bringing updates and supplies. One evening, as we sat discussing our future, Miller arrived with news. "We've been through the evidence you provided. It's solid, but without the flash drive, our case isn't airtight. We need that final piece to bring the whole house of cards down." The flash drive. It was still hidden in the cabin. A plan began to form in my mind. I knew it was risky, but it was a risk we had to take. With Miller's reluctant agreement, we devised a covert operation to retrieve the drive. Under the cover of darkness, we returned to the cabin. The place was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of our last visit. I slipped inside, my heart racing. Every sound seemed amplified in the silence. I found the cabinet and retrieved the flash drive, a small object holding so much power. Just as I was about to leave, a sudden noise startled me. Footsteps outside. I peeked through the window and saw shadowy figures approaching. We weren't alone. Quickly, I signaled to Jenna and Miller, and we hid in the shadows. The figures entered the cabin, their flashlights sweeping the room. They were searching for something, the flash drive. Realizing the danger, we carefully made our way out, avoiding detection. Once we were a safe distance away, Miller radioed for backup. The drive was the key to exposing the conspiracy, but we knew those implicated wouldn't stop coming after us. As we made our way back to the safe house, a new sense of determination settled over us. We were no longer just survivors. We were fighters, ready to bring the truth to light. Back at the safe house, with the flash drive securely in our possession, a sense of urgency enveloped us. Detective Miller wasted no time. He arranged for a team of experts to analyze the drive, uncovering a trove of incriminating evidence that implicated not just Hargrove, but a network of corruption linking politics, finance, and the corporate world. As the trial date approached, the tension was palpable. Jenna and I were key witnesses, the linchpin in a case that could topple giants. We prepared for the courtroom, going over our testimonies, aware that every word carried immense weight. The day of the trial arrived, a day that felt more like a lives. The courthouse was a fortress, swarming with media and security. As we made our way inside, flashes of cameras and shouted questions assaulted us, but we remained focused, our resolve unwavering. The trial was a whirlwind. Prosecutors presented the evidence with precision, painting a damning picture of Hargrove and his associates. When it was our turn to testify, Jenna and I took the stand, recounting our ordeal and the evidence we had uncovered. Our words echoed in the packed courtroom, every syllable a strike against the corrupt network we had exposed. As the trial progressed, the defense tried to discredit us, painting us as unreliable, involved for personal gain. But the evidence was irrefutable. The flash drive, in particular, was a silent testament to the truth, its contents a beacon of justice. After days of intense proceedings, the jury retired to deliberate. The wait was agonizing, each passing hour a test of our patience and courage. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. The jury returned, their verdict clear in their somber expressions. Guilty. The word rang through the courtroom, a sweet sound of victory and relief. Hargrove and his county conspirators were found guilty on all counts. Justice had prevailed, but the journey was far from over. As we stepped out of the courthouse, free but forever changed, we knew our lives would never be the same. We had fought against giants and emerged victorious, but at a cost. Our normal life was a distant memory, replaced by a new reality shaped by our ordeal. Detective Miller approached us, a smile of genuine respect on his face. You did good. Thanks to you, we've struck a significant blow against corruption. But be careful. People like Hargrove have long memories. As we walked away, hand in hand, a mix of emotions flooded us, triumph, relief, but also a sense of wariness. We had exposed a deep-seated corruption, but in doing so, we had also made powerful enemies. Our story had reached its conclusion, but our lives were just beginning a new chapter, one where we had to be vigilant, always aware of the shadows cast by those we had brought to light. If this story left you stunned, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more gripping tales and life lessons. Join our community and never miss a moment of these dramatic twists. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am 30 years old, married to my wife, 32, for almost 2 years. About 2 months ago, my wife told me that she got a friend request from her ex from 9 years ago. He was her first love, first ex, first everything, but due to him serial cheating, she broke up with him, but not without so much heartache on her part. We met after a year or two later. Started a relationship in 2015 and married in June 2019. We have a son, born last June 2020. Anyway, the last time that they had communicated was in 2013 until she apparently had received a friend request last February or March from him. She knows that I have feelings of jealousy about him, and it had been a sort of unwritten rule that she would never contact him again, and she would tell me if he did contact her. It's an offshoot of our agreement of no secret, nothing hidden in our marriage, especially in regards to things that might threaten our marriage. She told me about the friend request about 2 to 3 weeks after, when per our agreement, it should have been disclosed immediately. She said she declined the friend request. I was a bit worried, but let it pass since it was just something minor. Everything else has been unsuspicious until 1 week ago, when I logged into her Messenger account. We both have each other's password on everything and regularly check the other social media accounts. I rarely do this, but out of a hunch, I went to her archived messages and there was a missed call from her ex at 1 a.m. the previous night while I was at work. It wasn't answered, but why would she hide it from me? I tried to remain calm and waited for her to eventually tell me, but she didn't. On the third day, I couldn't hold it any longer, so I confronted her about it. We had a very bad fight mostly because of me, and she said she saw the missed call, but has no idea how it was transferred to the archived messages. We fought the entire day. I was very angry about why she did not tell me about it, but instead hide it from me. She denied any wrongdoing. I made her ask him why he called, but he replied that he wrong pressed. I called BS. How can you wrongly press call on a messenger account that you haven't been in contact with since 2012? About 2 days ago, he again called her, and when she didn't answer, he proceeded to ask her why she isn't answering. Since our last fight, I have been kind and calm, but I don't know why he has the balls to suddenly keep calling my wife out of the blue, and more than once at that. Am I being overly obsessive and harsh about it, or should I investigate further? The ex lives about 15 minutes from our home. This is actually the first place where both of them grew up. We just recently transferred here. Her and my son arrived in September 2020 while I arrived in March this year. No, I am not going to contact the ex yet. This might make him go underground more discreet in contacting her. I didn't need any detail. I just need to know if she's cheating or not. If she cheats, I am going to immediately go for divorce. We are still supposed to be in the honeymoon stage. If she cheats now, then how much worse would it get when we go through the midlife stage? No, 2013 was the last contact. Added some correction and some more details. 2012, when they broke up, she unfriended the ex in Facebook. 2013, she had another boyfriend. He and her boyfriend started medical school. I was their friend/classmate. They broke up due to the man being an a-hole, and also in my own observation since I became close to them during that time. He was just a rebound boyfriend for her. About 6 months into our relationship, approximately 2015, she told me that during her previous relationship with her classmate in 2013, her ex, the first love, was staying in town and got the flu. She supposedly didn't want to talk to him anymore, but he was sick and he repeatedly asked her for some help and some medicine since he was alone and couldn't get up. She asked her male cousin to bring some meds over to the first love. She didn't tell her then boyfriend about this, and as far as I know, I am the only one that knows about it besides her, the first love and cousin. 2015, we got closer over the years and started a relationship. I asked her to be with me, but during that time, she was clearly heads over heels and more in love with me than I her. The second time that he tried calling her, I sort of cut the call. We were sitting together in the back seat of the car. Father-in-law was driving, so I guess she did not have a choice but to tell me since I saw it already. She didn't answer the call. That was when he texted her and asked why she was not responding. I am still observing my wife. We are both been sick the last 3 days from over fatigue, so neither had time to get out. It's been a long time since I last posted. Stopped monitoring her obsessively as I was simply too tired. No further contact by her ex has been made. Nothing about her words or behavior. Hints of betrayal/infidelity. I am sorry for wasting all your time. Maybe I was just an insecure PUS update. I just remembered today that when I arrived in here, her hometown, in late February, I missed her and pretty much was initiating X every day, sometimes more, and she would deny me more often than not. I was lucky if we had X once a week, but I never relented asking for it every day. One particular day, she had made a comment that I was an X addict. This happened about 5 minutes after we had X. I was taken aback because that was the first time we had X in 3 to 4 weeks. That's when I decreased my intimacy request to about once a week, which she would sometimes still turn down. I totally forgot about this until today. Anyway, all I have right now are suspicions, and I am too tired to be obsessive and thorough about catching anything. I go to work for 5 to 7 days at a time, then go home and care for our son while she goes to work. We don't go home for 5 to 7 days because it would unnecessarily expose our son to possible infection. We alternate on work. She works while I stay home, and vice versa. I live in Asia, and this setup is allowed where I live. I guess this will be my last update. I feel bad for taking your time, knowing there is more people who need your advice in this forum. Thank you. Update 1 month later. I posted here about a month ago. Just found out of a 4-year-long emotional and physical affair. I don't know what to do about it. More than the years I have been married. Then he dumped her and she pursued him for another year. Then, when he knew that she was now living a long distance from me, he tried to start the affair again, and that's when she finally said no. I asked her a million questions, but having a hard time believing her answers. She said she loves me even during the affair. She said she never planned on leaving me, but why did she stay for 4 years with him, and why did she run after him for another year? 5 years of her giving more effort for the affair than for our relationship. They even had a relationship song together. Denied me ex, but doubled down effort for other man. Basically, she admitted the affair after she felt that I was losing my love for her. No longer there emotionally. She can't bear losing what we have. She ended it in January when I told her I was preparing to travel home to her. She showed me all their communication. So I know for a fact that starting this year, she turned him down emphatically despite his effort to rekindle their relationship. I can't function much right now, but she's also not in a good place. I cry all the time, but she does too. I think even more than me. She quit her job 3 days ago. Is so regretful that she can't even help with our baby. Most of our communication is when she says sorry or I love you every 15 minutes or so when she manages to come near me because I can't even look at her or touch her anymore. She asked to be intimate with me and tried to have sex with me, even while covered with snot. Will the pain stop? Will I be able to forgive her? What happened is so crushing. Other man came at the time when she was struggling with depression. The depression lasted for about a year. The depression was over. Why did the affair even last that long? She said she didn't want to leave me ever, but admits to having long feelings for other men even now. Based on the emails, it was 2 years of emotional affair and they would kiss when she went to her childhood home about once a month. For 2 years, he tried very hard to get in her pants, giving her all the compliments known to mankind. He would whine and complain about not having sex because he just couldn't help it. My wife is so special. He said that kisses on the lips would never be enough because she was the most beautiful thing he ever laid eyes on, inside and out. She gave in after 2 years and they were physical about once a month since then. He dumped her because she apparently believed all his words when his motivation for it all was just sex. My wife tried to get him back for about a year, then due to pandemic, my wife no longer could come to her childhood home once a month, but she still tried to email him to get back to the affair. Then we had our baby in June 2020 when she came back to her old hometown with my son in September. He tried to have sex with her again. That's when she started telling him that she regretted everything and repeatedly tried no contact. January was the last time they communicated, although he still tries by other means to talk to her, but she shuts him down immediately. She had also told me about those times too. She thought about deleting everything but changed her mind because according to her, she wanted to have proof to show me that it's over if I found out about the affair. Since the no contact, the other man has been trying to reach her even in the hospital where she worked, but she has shut him down. Before she quit her job, she had written requests so that the security guard would not let him within her work premises with exception of the ER, of course. I have seen the evidence of this, and I asked the security guard about the request. I can't sleep or eat. I feel like shit. She has sunk into such a low right now. I sometimes can't even get my wife to take a shower to remove all the snot and dried up tears from her face. She had made everything transactional. If you would just talk to me for 5 minutes, I promise I would shower after. FING ridiculous. Oh, you want me to function normally? Then promise me first that you will never leave me. I would do anything but can't even wash the dishes without vomiting on the plates. Thank you everyone for your advice. Most of you want me to divorce immediately, but I have a list of reasons not to do it yet. Number 1. Yes, I would divorce immediately if not for our son. She had been a better parent to him than I have been. Number 2. The hurt that I feel is unimaginable, but seeing her reaction when she saw me hurting. Is it possible that she's feeling more pain than I am? The massiveness of the number of tears and snot etc. seems ridiculously impossible. I wouldn't have believed it if I have not seen it. It seemed like I haven't seen her face not wet with tears since D-Day a month ago. Number 3. She's a doctor, so if she wanted to leave me, she could have without financial problems. She could just have left with other men, and even if the other man left his job, her money would be more than enough for them. Number 4. She's willing to take the fall. She tried to out herself and the other man for everyone. When I say everyone, I mean everyone. I had to stop her from telling our family, even the other man's family. Heck, she even tried to tell the hospital where she worked when she quit her job. I had to be with her everywhere she went so that she would not spill the beans. In this small town, that would have been a death sentence to her and her affair partner. The affair partner especially would have lost most of his career prospect. Number 5. I have all the email, I think. I read everything after she told me her affair story and it all coincided with the email. Number 6. She already moved on from her affair partner as the email suggests. But during our medical school, with all the extreme stress we were going through and me becoming distant because of the course load, she became depressed. It was the right timing when a fair partner tried chatting to her, telling her how he has changed and apologizing to her. She turned him down, but he continued to chat. Eventually, the affair partner began telling her how she has changed into the best person possible, and the rest is history. During this time, I was struggling academically and didn't pay much attention to her. I don't know how it would turn out, but I think I should let my mind clear up for at least a month before making a decision. This way, my son wouldn't be affected much. I know I may seem to all of you as weak, but I am trying my best to keep the house together. I have a 1-year-old son who needs me. I try to do everything through this unimaginable pain. I am trying to do the right thing by my baby son. Wayward spouse has been begging me to quit my job so we could work our marriage out. We have enough savings to last for about a year with neither of us working. We live in a house bought by her parents for us. We have little debt. To clarify, she was coming home to her town because she had had her job there. Then, after the 2 weeks of straight hospital duties, she would come back to spend time with me. During the affair, she would have sex with AP in the 2 weeks she was in her hometown. I know that she is a horrible person, and I know that I am in an extremely vulnerable state. Rest assured, I will do what's best for me and my baby. I just need some of your advice along the way. To summarize the story timeline, 2015, we started the relationship after her thought of pursuing me more than I am pursuing her. 2018, she gives in to ex with a fair partner. 2019, we got married and got pregnant shortly after. We decided to save ourselves and didn't have ex until after the wedding. 2020, he dumped her. So in 2019, when you got married and got pregnant shortly after and decided to save yourself and didn't have ex until after the wedding, she was getting ex from the affair partner. Well, let's continue. In 2021, January, she sort of dumped him back. Then in 2021, June, she confesses the affair. A short update, we agreed to do the STD test next week. Nothing much has changed except her body weight. We are both unable to eat or sleep much. I just told her about 30 minutes ago that I am going to a lawyer to find out my options and suggested that she do it too. She became hysterical. She said she wouldn't go to a lawyer and begged me to go to counseling instead. I told her to go find a shrink for herself. I also told her that I will no longer sleep in the same room with her because she can't understand that I can't even bear to touch her, much more have sex with her. It makes me nauseous. I often get woken up each night by her hugging me and trying to initiate sex, trying to sort of get me off guard and lustful. And my repeated pleas to never do it again are unheard. She asked again and again if I didn't love her anymore. I got fed up and just left her on the floor. She's in a crying mess right now in our bedroom. To everyone who posted here, I am really thankful for taking your time for me. I am reading and rereading your post here, and I will talk to Wayward Wife again. Once she calms down, I will ask for a timeline, then a polygraph, and I will talk to her about DNA testing for our son. The following text may be too much information. We got married in June 2019. We would have sex every day, 2 to 3 days when she was with me. I remember she would always want to do it every day, but I was tired. She would be disappointed if I was not able to have another erection for round 2. It was probably in September to October 2019 when she got to leave from work, and we were having sex almost every day because she wanted to get pregnant so bad. She even wanted to have sex multiple times a day. We would have a pregnancy test about every 3 days, and she would be disappointed every time it was negative when it came back positive. All this to say that I am pretty certain that he is my son. Plus, his features are so similar to mine. I don't want to expose the affair because I don't want us to be the talk of the town. I don't want to see nurses whispering and stealing glances at work. One day, maybe, I will expose the affair when the time is right. When we were in medical school together, she would steal glances of me in class, at the laboratory, at the hospital. It was so often that it became obvious to me and our colleagues she would be sad if I wasn't giving her enough attention. One time I was reading in one of our classroom while she was hanging out with our classmates. Just outside the door, I noticed our classmate laughing, and when I looked up, I saw them teasing her because she was staring at me, on the verge of crying because she had told me to hang out with her, but I didn't. She always wanted to hold hands with me, always wanted to be with me. If I mentioned that I was going to buy groceries, she would ask to come with me and sook if I refused. She was always insecure because she was a bad girl and would ask me why I was attracted to her knowing her wild history of partying in the past. Always asking me what I was thinking when I am silent. We were inseparable even at the end of our relationship. We gave each other our social media passwords. I helped her sister when she became pregnant as an 18-year-old. I cared for her and she seemingly cared for me too. When we would fight, she would always be the one to give in and be the better person. When I was angry at her, she would be so scared that I would leave her and then I would assure her that I wouldn't. What's so special about other men that he gets to ruin me? I think my posts have placed her in a negative light, not making excuses for her. But I felt all this time that she was not obsessive, only loving and maybe unusually clingy. The reason I posted some of her past obsessive behavior was because it was of a woman who was heads over heels in love, totally opposite to the behavior of someone who has an affair. For example, the story about her almost crying only happened once, even though her glances were daily. She felt that she was a bad girl because I am what most people would consider a good guy. I have no vices, rarely partied. I never considered her a bad girl. I actually was the one who decided to wait for X until after marriage. So, she was more comparing herself to me. Also, she was salutarian in our med school class. So, she was very gifted academically. So, no one considered her a bad girl in our class. In terms of patience, kindness, and thoughtfulness, she blows me out of the water. She went to her hometown once a month because we were planning to stay here in hometown permanently and we were already offered a job here. We are just waiting for my training to end in the other place, and she accepted the job in advance. Presently, we are here in her hometown and life is good financially. She said she felt guilty during the affair but described a mix of happiness, addiction like she can't say no to AP when AP would pursue her, and the fact that she was terrified that I would find out kept the affair going. She was too weak to say no. She said she tried to go back to the other man for 1 year after he dumped her because she can't believe that all this time, the effort was for nothing, that she betrayed me for nothing. She said her head was so illogical that time that instead of being relieved the affair was over, she tried to reconcile with other man to justify her action in her mind. When AP wanted to start the affair again, she had by then gained the strength to say no. This is according to her. Also regarding withholding X from me after the affair was over, she said it was because she felt used during the affair so she shut down actually. She was disgusted with X for those months after she initiated no contact. My son is the most adorable creature on this planet. I will try my best for him without reconciliation or divorce. She said that she has always loved me and I was the love of her life, but she is also a horrible, confused, and weak person at the same time. She wishes she had this strength all along to say no to other man. She told me that she wanted to have a child with me so badly because she thought it could give her the ability to finally free her from her self-imposed prison of infidelity. All of these things she told me in the course of 2 hours today before I went to work. Sort of a bird's eye view of her mental state during the affair. According to her, I told her towards the end to pull herself together and be more responsible in the house with our baby. She apologized and said that she is in awe of me being responsible enough while in such hurt. She has a book on how to heal your spouse after an affair and she said she would start to read it. Also, I told her to stop crying so much. Hypocritical in my part, because I can't stop crying myself, and she said she would try to be more emotionally stable. I told her that there is about an 85% probability that I would not decide to reconcile. She took it quite well, surprisingly, but she told me that she wanted to expose and humiliate a fair partner, by extension herself, to prove that she wanted only me. I said very firmly to never do that. When I left, she promised to clean the house when the baby sleeps. For the update, sorry for being absent for the past few days. About the time of my last post, she was nowhere to be found and could not be contacted for most of the day. I was talking trash to her, telling her that my heart was about to bust with the pain while a fair partner was probably smirking in his office, thinking he had one-upped me. We both were sobbing and I fell asleep. When I woke up, she was gone. I thought she finally went to a fair partner and broke no contact. I went ballistic. Well, she actually went behind my back and went to a fair partner's boss to expose him and their affair, armed with printed evidence. She apparently threatened to get her own attorney and publicly expose the firm if they did not give him the utmost punishment. We have also been dealing with the fallout because her professional reputation has taken a hit because of it. The affair partner has been fired and most likely will lose his license for his law practice in our country. Unfortunately, during the time that she was away, out of anger, I went to my lawyer friend and got the divorce papers. By the time we wife went home, the divorce papers were already in our house waiting for her. So now, we are in this very confusing situation where she did a positive thing for my self-esteem, but it backfired because now, although I never really planned to yet, we are divorcing. I feel bad for her, but I decided to go through with it anyway. As my lawyer told me, the earliest for it to be finalized would be by January next year. As you could probably imagine, this has incredibly affected her. She said that she was proud of herself when she was driving home that day, eager to show me how much I mean to her. She had no clue what was waiting for her. We'll post updates later. As all of you know, I am happy about the fallout for a fair partner, but I got most of my confidence boost after filing for divorce, like being set free from prison. I feel I regained control of my life and my decision. The grip of the affair on my mental well-being and the thought process has loosened. I am now in control of my circumstance, in control of my destiny. It has been freaking liberating, and I can live a life of a divorced man and father. Sorry for not updating for so long. Life has been chaotic lately. About 1 to 2 weeks ago, my wife attempted deleting herself. We are still at the hospital. I am with her 24/7 to minimize, prevent her ideation. Our son with his grandparents. We're what wife's parents. I thought she was gonna die, but her vital signs has been stable. She's going to make it. She's not mentally stable though. Hopefully, I have the time to post longer updates later tonight. And that's the end of the post. Well, here's my reaction about her trying to self-delete herself. She's a doctor. So, if she wants to delete herself, she would do it. She would be very successful. So, I call BS to that. Especially if you're a doctor, if you want to self-delete yourself, you would do it and you can do it and you know how to do it. This is one of her attempts to ensnare you back, to manipulate you. But let me just go through the story and basically analyze, unpackage some of the points on this story. I don't do analysis that often, but for this one, I just feel like doing it. First of all, when you guys got married, you know she was the bad girl. She was the party girl, and you are a good guy with no vices. And you made a decision not to be intimate until after the wedding. First of all, you are marrying a party girl. A party girl is going to get down and dirty. So she is having sex regardless of whether it's you or someone else. So you took yourself out of the picture because of you are trying to be virtuous. But she went on to who she was, which is a party girl. She found another person. So that's after she got dumped. She felt insecure. And when she felt insecure and the guy was coming for more, she was able to reject him. So she actually didn't dump him. She just rejected him, and she felt this little confidence from rejecting him. And then she went to you and said, "Hey, oh, I rejected someone. Look at me. Clap for me." It's part of the emotional torture and emotional draining that she's trying to put on you. And she was trying to love bomb you and crying and being in this depressed state of misery, which she's used to. That's her natural state. A state of misery, a state of affair, of emotional stress, emotional trauma. And she used this to cling on you. You took it as she was being remorseful, but she's not being remorseful. She just enjoyed the state of being miserable. And that's why she's trying to love bomb you and do all these things. So you also made the comment that the affair partner was pursuing her. And the fact that she was terrified that you would find out kept the affair going. So people like this, they enjoy the thrill of the affair. She'll remember she never told you about the affair, why the affair was going on. Because the fact that you don't know about the affair makes the affair more thrilling. It's the humiliation. The fact that she's humiliating you behind your back is the thrilling part. So that's what I have to say about that one. And then she said she had gained the strength to say no after she was dumped. So I don't buy that at all. And then after she got dumped by him, she told you that she was disgusted by X for those months after she initiated no contact. I think she was disgusted by you, not the ex at all. And then she said she's always loved you, and you were the love of her life. Meanwhile, during the course of your relationship, she was also cheating on you behind your back. So I don't quite understand how she loved you. And if you think about it, at the end of the story, she went and exposed the affair partner. She was so interested in exposing the affair partner and blowing up his life, your life, and her life, which shows that she's a self-destructive person. And why is she so interested in blowing up this AP's life? That's because she's still hurt. He humiliated her and rejected her. And then she went back to you, which is the plan B, her second option. And she always held that grudge against him, which is really the reason why she did it. She didn't do it for you. She did it because she's spiteful. I don't understand the laws in your country, but she didn't get forced. I don't know why his license should be taken because it wasn't an assault. It was consensual. So I don't know. There might be more story than that, but I don't understand why. Maybe infidelity is against the law in those countries. But if he's punished, you should be punished as well. But she's already quit her job. She's self-destructive and she has a lot of mental issues and very unstable. Quite frankly, I think the original poster is a simp and should have left a long time ago. Even if you have a baby with her, I understand that you want to care for your baby, but she is very unstable and enjoy the emotional roller coaster. And she's still in control because when she saw that you have actually took the initiative to divorce her, she reeled you in by faking a self-deletion attempt because she's a doctor. I promise you, if a doctor wants to take their own life, they know damn well how to do it. Thank you for staying to the end of this story. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.